Welcome to O-Talkin' with Dave. Here's Dave.
Hey, how we doing out there? I hope you are doing well. We're all top shelf here. Top shelf and climbing the walls. I was in an elevator recently in Northern California. And, me and a gentleman, we get on the elevator, we hit the button. I forget, it doesn't matter what floors we're going to, but it takes forever for the doors to close, and then we start to go up. And he said, total strangers, he said, man, this elevator is slow as molasses. I said, slow as molasses? Dude, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Georgia. I went, well, I'm from Alabama. I said, they make good molasses over at Sand Mountain, don't they? Which is, oh, they sure do. He was from just north of Atlanta. And I remember we used to go to Sand Mountain. And when we went through there, we always got some sorghum and molasses. And where that slow as molasses comes from is in the wintertime. It's thick anyway. But in the wintertime, when you try to pour that on a buttered biscuit, oh, hold on. A buttered biscuit with molasses on there. It's just got a strong flavor, but it's so thick in the wintertime. Thus, slow as molasses. But it got me thinking, we should do more sayings. The mutton stuff, that went over really well. And then I travel all over the country, and I'm constantly hearing things that bring you together from a region. I absolutely love it. I thought I'd go ahead and do some more. Thus, the name of this, mutton stuff with a wild hair. So let's just jump right in. I got a ton of them. I've heard this my whole life. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. No, it's not dirty. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. What does that mean? Or where did that come from? It started in the 1600s. In the 1600s. And it's talking about, they used to use falcons to hunt. And you've got a falcon. Well, the falcon too, they could be damaged. And so, it's two meanings. First of all, be careful with your falcon going after, things in the bush or close to different, things where it could get hurt, because you'd rather keep that one than to go after those two. But also, it just talked about the value, where the falcon is more valuable than any of its prey because it brings more. So be grateful for what you got. This is better. It's better to have this one than to lose it for two others. Yeah, I get it. Just be grateful for what you got. Understand what you have. The Greek mythology, Miss Ledbetter, 7th grade. When I think of Greek mythology, that's what I think of. My wife thinks of Troy or Clash of the Titans. Love Clash of the Titans. But the Achilles heel, now we say someone's Achilles heel, or their weak spot, or their kryptonite. It's their Achilles heel. Right out of Greek mythology. My wife knows all of the characters in Troy, so she feels like she knows Greek mythology. But anyway, the saying was Achilles' mother dipped him in the river Styx, which one of my favorite bands of the 70s. I can play all their stuff. And the Styx is mythological. It's the river that circles Hades 7 times. Achilles' mother dips Achilles in there, but can't dip him completely because she's holding him by the heel. So that's his weak spot. That's his only vulnerability. So that's his Achilles heel. And, of course, if you saw the movie, spoiler alert, the kid's dead the whole time. Oh, different movie. Sorry. Close but no cigar. Yeah, this comes from back in the days. Nowadays you go to fairs and mess with the carny folk. But you go to fairs, it's mostly kids playing the games, or young men trying to win the big stuffed animal for a girl or something like that. Well, in the old days it was for everybody, and so some of the games, the top prize was a cigar. And that's where this comes from. Hey, that you try it, you come close, no prize. Or close, but no cigar. Now it's true all over everything. I used to hear that close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Well, obviously, you don't get a cigar for being close. Cup of Joe. Cup of Joe. Heard this constantly. You want a cup of Joe? What does Joe mean? Yeah, I can hear you. You're saying coffee. Yeah, you know where that comes from? Well, let me tell you. A lot of these today come from the armed forces. This one is from the Navy. The Navy. Navy, let's see, Admiral Josephus Daniels. They called him Joe. Josephus Daniels. He decided no alcohol on any ships, on any naval ships. These guys get out there, they do enough. They do enough when we go into harbor. We're not having alcohol on the ships. We just can't do it. So total prohibition on the ships. So they decided, okay, what the whole thing where the cup of Joe comes along, the strongest thing we got on this ship is a cup of coffee, thanks to Joe. So they just started calling it a cup of Joe. You know, I know a bunch of Navy guys. Most of them don't drink coffee. Let me think. 1, 2, 3. I know 4 Navy guys who don't drink coffee. Maybe that's why. They drink other stuff, though. Anyway, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, this is old. This is way 16th century stuff. Well, what would happen then is, you know, water, clean water wasn't that plentiful, or maybe it was just you had to go down to the creek or the aqueduct to get it. Anyway, the whole family would take a bath, and this is weird to me, but the father was first, and then the mother, and then the kids by age, apparently, because the baby was the last one. And by then, this water is filthy, and you could barely see the baby in there. Be careful. And they'd throw it out in the street, and it would run down or whatever. Be careful. Don't throw the baby out with the bath water. That is a literal thing. Meaning, hey, don't be careless and get rid of something valuable. You know, my wife will go buy new things and then donate them to the thrift store. She's got this backwards. She would definitely throw the baby out with the bathwater, figuratively speaking. Down to the wire. This is one that comes up all the time, and this is from horse racing. Way back when, they would put, you know, a wire on the ground, and that's the finish line. You know, and then when they say it came down to the wire, meaning, you know, photo finish. They didn't have all this back then, but that's where down to the wire comes from. Also, draw the line. You know, we got to draw the line somewhere. You know, we got to draw. It's not just a good Aerosmith song. We got to draw the line somewhere, meaning show limits or boundaries here. That also comes from horse racing, but it's at the start. You know, it's more of a metaphorically speaking, the way we use it. This was, we got to draw a line. That's the start line. The wire is the finish line. Because, you know, there's different starting lines, but they had one finish line. Not that unique or outstanding, but we're going to get to them. Face the music. Sometimes, you know, you got to face the music. You know where it came from? It is from the military. Another military one. When a soldier was disgraced or stripped of his rank or dishonorably discharged or thrown out of the military, they would, you know, do it very publicly, and then they had to leave. I can think back of in Westerns where they covered this, the cavalry, and then, you know, they're in a fort and they rip his badges off and his buttons off and break his sword and open the gates, and boom, you are banished. And then when they leave, there's always a drummer or a band or someone playing music, just like I don't know, like a scourge or something like that. And he has to walk out, but he has to face the music as he goes out. So it's consequences is basically it. Fly off the handle. Have you ever flown off the handle? I fly off the handle from time to time. Mom would fly off the handle, you know, probably because of something I did, but I've heard that my whole life. Fly off the handle. It goes back to the 19th century, which is, you know, a couple of hundred years ago. There was a series of poorly crafted axes, And this is before they would put that little stent in there to make the top expand, and it would hold the axe on. And a lot of, the iron part was expensive. The wood part was what was cheap. But it talks about just losing control, because, you go back and there, you lost your axe, flew off the handle, totally lost control. That's where that comes from. This one is interesting. Scot-free. You ever heard that? Somebody getting off scot-free? Well, it's a couple of things. It's back in England a long time ago. A scot was a tax. And, you got away without paying your taxes. They said you got off scot-free. But this one I think is cooler. It's a better example. And it's the 1200s. 1200s. Don't tell me my podcast doesn't have range. Go back to nobody's ever said that. Pertinent range, maybe. Range, no. So go back to the 1200s. The English were fighting the French. They were having a real dust up. And the whole attention of the English was on the French. The troops, how do we fight? How do we do this? But it's almost like in The Ring where the eye is distracted. Well, the Scots would come in and rob or rape and pillage or whatever Scots do. I don't think they raped. It's just, rape kind of goes with pillage. I don't think there are many Scottish Vikings. But anyway, they would come in while the English were messing with the French and steal and go back to Scotland. And that's part of the idiom. They got off scot-free. How about that? Bunch of thieving Scots. We're trying to win a war here. Yeah, my axe is gone. I'm going to fly off the handle. Here's one that hits home from time to time. I think we've all been there. If we haven't, we're not being honest. Hair of the Dog. It's not just a good Nazareth album. It is a good Nazareth album, though. Hair of the Dog. In medieval times, let's say you got bit by a dog, you got rabies, or you got an infection or whatever from that dog bite. A couple of different treatments. One was you rubbed the hair of the dog that bit you on the wound. Another one I heard in my research is you would take a hair of that dog and put it in some water and boil it, and then you would drink it or put it on the wound. This would supposedly prevent rabies or infection or whatever. Now, who knows what hair of the dog is now? Still hair of the dog that bit you. So if you got hammered last night on whiskey or tequila or whatever your drink of choice is, you wake up, you're hungover. It's well known. The way to get over that hangover is go back to the dog that bit you. That's where it came from. You heard it here. You heard it here. Jump on the bandwagon. Jumping on the bandwagon. Yeah, that which means, just show your support for something. I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. I'm going to jump on the bacon bandwagon. I never get off that bandwagon. But where that comes from, way back when the circus would come to town. Again, fairs and circus and carny folk. I don't know. Hey, apple's not too far from that tree. Anyway, the circus would come to town. They put all their tents up and the animals and everything. But as they were coming in, with all of their wagons of stuff, they would go around the town just to let you know, hey, the circus is in town. It's a great way to let everybody know, get everybody excited. Well, what would happen was, since they're coming to town, politicians started hopping on some of these bandwagons. And, they get around town too. And that way they get some exposure. That's where it comes from, jumping on the bandwagon. To show your support and ask for support. Jumping on the bandwagon. Just getting attention. That's all it is. Isn't that all it ever is? Living high on the hog. Bacon doesn't come from high on the hog. It's like the belly. not to get it all anatomical with you. High on the hog. You know where that comes from? Well, I'm going to tell you. It means to be prosperous. It means to be doing well. Oh, yeah, they're living high on the hog. Actually, the best cuts of meat were thought to come higher on the pig's body, like the shoulder or the ham or the buttocks. But that's the better choices. The ribs, short ribs are along the upper back. So high on the hog. It's more of a location. It's a butcher joke, I guess. High cotton. What about that? Since we're getting high cotton. Oh, man, they're living in high cotton or tall cotton. It's two things. One is productivity and profit, and the other is working. So the first one, high cotton, if cotton's growing high, that means it's a good crop. Yeah, you go, hey, high cotton, tall cotton. Yeah, it's even in isn't it Alabama song? High cotton, one time they are not forgotten. Don't know the words, don't know the tune, apparently. But also, it not only means it's a good crop, but if you're picking the cotton and it's high cotton, tall cotton, you don't have to bend over as far to pick it. This is back when you did it manually. So even if you're a worker in a cotton field with high cotton, it's not as hard on your back. So it's a good thing. Hey, high on the hog or high cotton, either way, kudos. Kudos. Here's one. It's a simple statement. There's not enough room in here to swing a cat. Well, swing or sling, I've heard it both ways. Okay, well, I go back to more than one way to skin a cat. Stop it. I think I've got another one on that too now that I think about it. But not enough room to swing a cat or sling a cat. This is much darker than I thought. It means you're in a cramped space. I got no space in here. What's going on? It actually comes from way back when with the cat of nine tails. You know what that is? That's that whip that at the end it's got I don't know how long they are. Nine leather strands, and at the end they would tie in rocks or glass or something. So when they would hit, usually on the back, I hope, and as they would pull it back, it would just take chunks out. Cat of nine tails. It's much darker than not enough room in here to sling a cat. How about that, man? Whew. I guess that's why most of them I saw you go outside. Let's get to something a little lighter. I apologize for that. Off the cuff. He just thought of that off the cuff. I mean, ad lib or he just came up with that. Actually, way back when, it's not like, you see people writing the answers in the palm of their hand or wherever. Public speakers way back when would often, you dress up and they had the white cuffs. Their cuffs would stick out further than their coats. And a lot of times they were made of paper. They actually put the cuff on and put it under there. And then, other times it's not, but it's, you look for that because, dirty areas or whatever, it's easier and it's just for looks. Well, what they would do is they would write notes or crib notes or, bullet points in the current vernacular right on that cuff right there. So they could just look down and there's their note. So they did. They come up with this stuff off the cuff. I do a lot off the cuff, just so you know. And I don't, look, no sleeves. One for the road. How many times have we had one for the road? This is kind of obvious, but it started in medieval times, days of yore, if you will. But they would take a drink, and it was like, let's do one for the road, and it's they're going out into the abyss. Who knows when you're going to see you again? It's probably, I'm thinking horseback. Anyway, it's a final drink together, a final toast. Let's do one for the road. And that's what it meant. Now we do road sodas. Anyway, It's not have one drink because I'm about to drive. That's not it. It's almost a toast, a high five. I'm going to get out of here. It's almost like two. Let me get one for the road, meaning, all right, I'm about to leave. I'm about to leave. Here's one I didn't know, but I guess I should. I know the expression, just pull out all the stops. You ever heard that? Pull out all the stops. We're not holding back at all. We're going to give it everything we've got. This could be a pep talk. It could be, I'm going to take a long trip, pedal to the metal. I'm going to pull out all the stops and go. It actually refers to a musical instrument. It's an organ. I play the organ. I got them behind. I got them all around me. And the thing is, even these organs, you have the slides, and that slide controls everything from volume to pitch to whatever. Well, if you don't have any stops in place, it's just full volume, the natural, unabridged, unaltered sound of the instrument. That's where pull out all the stops comes from. If you pull out a pot like a pipe organ, they pull out all the stops, man, your nostrils are gonna be flaring. Yada-da. Phantom of the Opera stuff there. So pulling out all the stops. Who knew it? Speaking of musical instruments, anybody ever told you, hey, just put a sock in it? Why don't you just put a sock in it? You know what that means. Be quiet. Be quiet. Yeah, you're talking too much. I have been told that. I've been told several different ways, but it means the same thing. Well, early musical instruments, early I'll say brass instruments or gramophones or whatever you call them, they had no volume control, and you had to really put some wind in there to get it to make any noise at all, and it was hard to control the volume that way and still not make a sound. So they would actually use socks or rags to muffle the sound, and that's where it comes from. Put a sock in it. And now it pertains to a lot of different things, but it means quiet down or shut up. We've all been there. Scapegoat. I did not know this one. What's a scapegoat? Well, there's a lot of scapegoats. It's a political season right now, and something goes wrong. It wasn't me. It was him. Nope, not my fault. It's him, her, them, they, and I'm not being politically correct right now. It's putting the blame on somebody else for your wrongdoing. Came from the Jewish tradition. I don't know how many Jewish fans I've got here. I don't know if I'm offensive toward the Jews other than calling them the Jews. I got some good Jewish friends. I got some crazy Jewish friends. Some of them aren't devout though. I know one particular Jewish friend. Every year he would cook a whole hog, have a big party, and send the pictures to his mother. Anyway, a scapegoat. It was the Jewish tradition, that they had this goat, and symbolically they would burden this goat with their sins. I don't know if they wrote it on a piece of paper or a piece of string or whatever, but symbolically they would put their sins and all their wrongdoings, they would confess them or put them on this goat, and then I guess they rat-a-tat-tatted him on the butt, and he went into the wilderness. That way, all their sins, they're gone. It's like they never happened. That doesn't sound Jewish to me, but that's what it says. So, scapegoat. We need some of those. I mean, being Baptist, I just gotta say I'm sorry, but it'd be handy for a goat. Wait, goat, isn't that mutton? It's kind of, and I mean, I'm stumbling upon stuff. I'm a genius and don't even know it. Square meal. Square meal. Good. What do we think of square meal? A good, healthy meal, right? Well, that's not necessarily true. Again, now we're going to the British Navy. The British Navy. They had, because it's the Navy, things that are square, you can stack space is limited, but you can stack it, and it's very functional. Things that are in squares, very functional. You get more, you can fit more in a small space. Well, their plates were square. I remember in my cafeteria. Remember your school cafeteria? Square plate with little square cubicles or whatever. But the square meal comes from the British Navy and their square plates. 3 squares, 3 hots and a cot, 3 square meals a day. From what I hear, some of those meals weren't that. My Navy buddies didn't say it was what they would consider a hearty, complete meal. Yeah. Turn a blind eye. Turn a blind eye. Many, many times I've heard this one. Just turn a blind eye. Meaning, you know something, but you're ignoring it. I'm going to turn a blind eye to that. You know that's going on, so I'm not going to look. Plausible deniability, but turning a blind eye. This actually goes back to a person, British Admiral Horatio Nelson. Admiral Nelson. He was blind in one eye, and they were giving him the signal to retreat, withdraw, and it was some sort of signal, not smoke signal, probably a light, something. It doesn't say when it was. Horatio Nelson sounds pretty old, but they were signaling him. But you had to look through his telescope to see that. Well, he put his blind eye into there, so he didn't see anything. So he didn't retreat. Turn a blind eye. He won, by the way. He didn't retreat. He won. Crazy Brits. It might have been when they were fighting the French, and he turned his blind eye to retreat, and he had his other eye on those Scots, so they wouldn't get away scot-free. Horatio, you're a crazy man. Wipe the slate clean. Clean slate. I mean, whatever you've done, look, we're just going to wipe the slate clean. And we're not going to hold you to that. We're going to forget it. Past offenses, nope, let's start over with a clean slate. That comes from back, in school years ago. My kids don't know what chalk on a chalkboard is. And chalk is something you draw on the sidewalks with. I think that's white chalk, black chalkboard. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But in school they had slates. Well, they would also keep up with their transgressions on the slate. I remember my kids used to come home, and what would they do? Something for discipline. They would have to pull a worm or do something that meant they got in trouble. Well, this would be the same as, you know what, put your worm back in your apple, you're fine. I never got that. A worm in the apple is a good thing. If you pull your worm, that's bad. Don't you want to get your worms out of your apples? I think we're sending mixed messages here. Of course, my kids are in their 30s now, so it's a little late to get on that. What about Raising Cane? Oh, Raising Cane. I have the 3-piece meal, no coleslaw, extra bread. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you've never been to Raising Cane's chicken tenders. Anyway, the idiom Raising Cane. Oh, just Raising Cane. Yeah, it's what I thought it was. Raising Cain. It goes back to the Bible. Cain and Abel, Garden of Eden. Nothing. Cain killed Abel because God liked Abel's sacrifice and didn't honor Cain's sacrifice. Well, Cain got upset. So raising Cain means to act impulsively. Just all of a sudden raise Cain, because Cain, he raised some Cain. He killed Abel. Also, old, it's, raising hell or raising the devil. Well, they're associating Cain, not the wrestler, Cain with evil. So there you go. And it should be. But raising Cain, just going crazy. I still like the restaurant better. How about getting a wild hair up your ass? Anybody? This is an American expression. It means to suddenly act unpredictable or out of control, or do things, just crazy things all of the sudden. Well, that's okay. Yeah. Well, you got a wild hair, and got a wild hair up our ass and drove that bulldozer in town to McDonald's. It's a true story. The But there's several different thoughts about the origin. So let's go back to it. It's anatomical. It's what it is. You know how you get a wild hair somewhere? I get my wife the other day. I got a wild hair uh, um, eyebrow, and we were driving along, and I saw her coming at it, and she's horrible with this. She got bad eyes, I guess, but she pulled half of my eyebrow out before she got that one. Oh, and get away from nose hairs. Oh, she pulled my nose hair one time. I felt it all the way to my butt. It was so deep. It's rough. But anyway, a wild hair, you know how the wild ones, they grow quickly? And a lot of times you can feel them. It feels like a sore. Well, it's a wild hair. That's literally where it comes from. It's just something that's out of control. It happened quickly. It's not thought out. That's why you get a wild hair. And I think someone just added up your ass for humor. Well, and it is kind of funny. Yeah, I got a wild hair up his ass. What do you do? But I just wanted to share that with you. I guess Cain got a wild hair up his ass and killed Abel. Well, I don't think the Bible really puts it that way, but then again, I don't know. Watch your P's and Q's. Now, people fight with me on this one. I've known this one a long time. I know two different reasons, but it's really the same thing. People go out and they get I thought it was in Ireland, but it really originated in England. People go out and have a good time in their local pub, and they get to drinking. And usually it's beer. In this case, it would be beer, but they would serve your beer in pints or quarts. You want a pint? Most people do pints, I believe, but sometimes you get a quart. And that's the P's and Q's. So where did watch your P's and Q's come in? Well, one of them is, hey, don't get unruly. I know when you get to drinking, you want to fight. And after you've had a certain amount, you know who you are. So watch your P's and Q's, meaning watch your pints and quarts, meaning, hey, watch how much you're drinking. The other one, we can go back to the slate if you want. You go in and there's your name or your symbol or your crest. And you got P's and Q's, and they would actually keep a tab. You've drank 8 quarts and 2 pints, and whoo, are you ever bloated? But anyway, you do that, and when you leave, that's a way of how much you owe. You'll pay with every one. Okay, you're going to leave. All right, let's see. You owe me whatever. So, don't drink more than you can buy. That's the two that watch your P's and Q's. I don't think anybody says this anymore. It's, don't get out of control. But hey, watch yourself. Yeah, there you go. Watch your P's and Q's. Burn your bridges. Have we burned bridges before? I think we have. I know I have. I don't like to burn bridges because you're going to probably need to go back across, and that's tough if it can be done. So it's making irreversible decisions is really what this is. Business, don't burn them. Every industry you're in, it's a small business. So from a professional advice point of view, don't burn bridges. But it came from the military again. And I misunderstood it. I thought you were burning the bridge. You cross the bridge, you're going forward, and you burn the bridge, and then you go. I thought, being the military strategist that I am, it was to keep the enemy from coming in behind you. You burn the bridge, they can't get to you. What it is for, it's to keep your army, your men from retreating, from just abandoning you, going AWOL. How about that? I didn't know that. It's to prevent you leaving and join the other side, or just going home. Burn that bridge. They can't get across there. I didn't know that. Burn the ships. I knew that back Columbus and other sailors on the ocean blue, they come across and people get homesick. They want to go. Well, one thing that they did when they were settling the Americas, they burned the ships. We can't go home. You can't swim. You can't swim that. You're not going to get across the big pond in a canoe. So they would do that as a point of, you're here to stay. You're not going anywhere. It's kind of the same thing, I guess. Burn bridges. It just turned into, hey, come on. You're going to need that guy. Lock, stock, and barrel. Lock, stock, and barrel. It means everything. The whole hog. Ooh, the whole hog. Everything. It comes from a gun reference. The lock, the stock, and the barrel, the three parts of a gun. And, they would tell you go in and you would buy, when you're buying something, you know what, I'll take everything you got. Lock, stock, and barrel. It means the whole thing, because there was a lot of guns traded. I don't know if they ever traded just one part of the gun or whatever, but that's where it comes from. Lock, stock, and barrel. I've heard that not too long ago. Rest on your laurels. There's none of that. What have you done for me lately? Don't rest on your laurels, but it's you've achieved success, and that's what you're focused on. I know people who accomplished something 20 years ago and hadn't done jack since, but they always point to, remember that. Yes. Well, and it comes from Greece. You can see the Olympics or wherever, when they would put that little crown made of laurel wreaths. It symbolized, achievement or winning or something like that. Yeah, that really, resting on your laurels, that has passed. Anybody that's doing that, what have you done? Well, lately, bringing home the bacon. Woo! Frying it up in a pan. Yeah, it's to earn, to provide for your family. That guy brings home the bacon. I do that almost every day. I just brought bacon home earlier today. Steak bacon, by the way. It's a pound of bacon in only 6 slices. It's so thick and delicious and hickory smoked. It's almost like ham, really. But bringing home the bacon, what does that mean? It's 17th century. 17th century. In the day, if you performed well, and it didn't say what the task was, but the reward or the prize, whether it was a competition or achievement at work or an award for agriculture, whatever it was at the time, a lot of time the reward was they paid you in bacon. And so when you brought that home, that meant you won. Not only did you win and you get the accolades, you also get bacon. Now, I'd much rather rest on my bacon than rest on my laurels. I think we can all agree at that. Feather in your cap, very similar thing. 17th century, if you won a debate or a chess game in the park or something, whatever it was a little more for the upper crust or the more intellectual. The winner would get a special feather, and they would put it in their cap. So it was, like with the bacon, it would be, it signified victory or achievement. I'd rather have a chunk of bacon. Put all your eggs in one basket. It means, you don't do that. I learned that from literally carrying eggs from the hen house at my grandfather's. Yeah, 17th century though. Don't put them all, it's risky. Don't put all your investments in one thing. Don't put all your money on one horse. I see it as having several income streams. That way, if one goes down, you got the others. I remember way back when I would call on aerospace. I would call on food. I would call on different things so that one went down, I still had the others. I didn't put all my eggs in one basket. Eggs also, this is where dime a dozen comes from. Eggs were considered cheap. Have you bought eggs recently? Oh, they're ridiculous. There's not golden eggs. And they're not the quality eggs they used to be. I sound like an old man here. I remember going to the farm and eating the eggs. And because, and this is gross, but the chickens get out and they eat bugs and they scratch and worms or whatever. The yellows of those eggs were almost orange. It was so rich, and the egg shells were thick. It was great. Now, eggs are expensive, and I've been to a lot of egg processing plants. Anyway, love them. Bacon and eggs. Giddy up, feather in your hat. Make hay while the sun shines. That means, hey, opportunities don't last. Be ready to jump on an opportunity. From the hay side, you can't process or harvest or bale hay when it's raining. It won't. It destroys the crop. And so you got to make hay when the sun shines. Done that a lot of times for my grandfather. A nest egg. Speaking of breakfast, what does a nest egg mean? Got a good nest egg. Usually it's savings. I got some money set aside. Got a nest egg. Or when a couple gets married way back when, not my parents, but way back when, parents would put a little money, give them a little money as a nest egg. Where it comes from is farmers used to put an egg in a nest that would entice a hen to lay another egg. If you got one, it encourages more egg laying. And I remember my grandmother, if there were two nests, one had an egg in it, and she wanted, maybe she wanted some chicks or whatever, but to produce more, she would take one of those eggs and put it in a nest that didn't have an egg, but it would entice someone to add to that, which go back to savings. That's what that's for. Here's a little money, when you can't add something to it, but I'm going to get you started. Nest egg. I didn't realize I knew that, but when I did, I remember Mama and her. Yeah, and sometimes there'd be a snake in there going after it, or there would be all sorts of things. She did not hold back. If anything messed with her chickens or her egg. A weasel. You ever seen a weasel in real life? Woo! Stop it. Wear your heart on your sleeve. You know that's a term of he wears his heart on his sleeve. A lot of times I hear that and I got to tell you, it's women when they get so upset and whatever, and they just go off, and I'll hear their husband or hear somebody else. They're trying to make up for this crazy behavior, but they'll say, "Oh, bless her heart, she just wears her heart on her sleeve." Yeah, that ain't where it comes from. Stop it. It goes back to medieval knights. Medieval knights. I've got a Viking helmet. I don't have a medieval knight helmet. Medieval knights, when they would joust, they've got the full armor and everything. Well, on their sleeve, they would have like tokens and like charms that their family would give them. I mean, jousting's bad. You don't see it in the movies. Man, there were some serious jousting casualties. But anyway, as they would get up to go joust, they would have all these tokens from their family, and they could look down, and it was things that meant a lot to them, their loved ones, right there on their sleeve. That's where that came from. I know. You are welcome. Devil's advocate. Da, 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 da. Devil's advocate. Someone who argues for the sake of argument. I mean, you hear that all the time. You know what? Not to be devil's advocate, but this is a serious thing. So the Catholic Church is where this comes from. So you have sainthood. People would come forth and say, here's why this person should be a saint. And so all these reasons. And, it's voted on or christened or whatever they do. Well, for every one of those, you have to have at least one person that argues for the other side. Meaning, well, I saw him, stealing a salt shaker from the diner, or, I saw him lifting the scales up when they were buying grapes at the Food World. This person who argues the other side one's for sainthood, the other one is the devil's advocate. Great movie too. Well, not that great of a movie, but it was a movie. Keanu Reeves, I believe. Piss poor. Piss poor. I am familiar with this term. Where does it come from? Well, I'll tell you. Way back when, in olden times, again, the days of yore, part of the tanning process, or leather tanning, getting it from hide to where it was really leather, they would use urine in the tanning process. And in times of certain need, now I could provide enough urine, I'm telling you, I go constantly. I could probably tan half the hide in America. However, at times it seems like urine might have been harder to find. Well, poor people would actually take their urine in and get a few pennies for it, or pesos, or rubles, or pence, whatever. And those people who did that, they called them piss poor. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? That's where piss poor comes from. Happy as a clam. Happy. I only have about 40 more of these. Happy as a clam. All right. Where does that come from? I mean, what it means, I'm happy, extremely happy. Well, the full phrase is not just happy as a clam. It's happy as a clam at high tide. Happy as a clam at high tide. Meaning, you had to dig clams, and they would wait until the tide went out, and then they would dig clams. The people, the clammers, the clam bumpers, or clam hoppers, or whatever, the clam diggers. Well, they didn't do that at high tide. So at high tide, clams are happy. Nobody's digging for us. That's where that comes from. You are welcome. Mad as a hatter. You heard that one? Even though it's a character, the Mad Hatter. This hurt my ears. Mad as a hatter. Okay. Haberdashers, that's people who make hats. Cy Kernan from The Fix. Y'all remember The Fix? One thing leads to another. He did his hands crazy. I saw him early on. I saw them early on. Matter of fact, it was so early, I think they did a 30-minute set, and they played that song 2 times. It was a good song, though. Anyway, he's a haberdasher now. That's free. You don't have to pay for that one. Mad as a hatter. So these hatters in the day, in order to work with felt, they had to use certain chemicals. Well, the chemicals were very strong. Definitely not OSHA approved. Well, it would, it would make them dizzy, sometimes give them headaches, and, act weird and all that. Well, it's like they had gone mad. So they noticed this more, and so they would say, hey, you're mad as a hatter. Yeah. Until the cows come home. Yeah, well, we stayed there until the cows came home, or we'll be here till the cows come home, which means a long time, possibly forever. And it's just about those cows. I mean, they're just slowly walking, and it seems like it takes them forever, again, from the farm. Hold your horses is an obvious one. They would, a lot of times, it means be patient, of course, but in the days of horse-drawn carriages, you had to, you didn't have stop signs, you didn't have traffic lights, and even like before you would leave, if you're waiting on somebody or whatever, it's, just hold your horses. It literally meant hold your horses. I mentioned one way to skin a cat. I thought I had something on this. This is a continuation. Yes, an amendment or a subordinate clause, if you will. In the 1800s, nobody knows why a cat was involved, but it was believed to refer to hunting methods. Meaning, if you want to kill game, there's more than one way to do that. You can get up early, you can wait it out, you can use dogs, you can use bait, you can do there's a lot of different ways. Somehow the poor cat got involved. You feel better now? They're not really skinning cats. They don't make tennis strings out of cat gut anymore either. So let's just calm down. The whole hog, all in, the whole 9 yards, lock, stock, and barrel. This would come back in 18th century England, where people would buy the whole hog, and that showed affluence. Oh, I'll take the whole hog. My parents would go in and buy half a hog with the Tuckers at one time, I remember. But the whole hog, it means all in. I'm all in. Let's see. I got time for a couple of more. To keep your shirt on? Ah, keep your shirt on. This comes back from, I don't know, 1800s, where before men fought, usually they were dressed up somewhat. They would fight, they would take their shirt off first. And so when someone saw something escalate, they would, ho, 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 just keep your shirt on if I don't want to fight you. Or if it's somebody's bar or whatever, guys, keep your shirts on. Meaning, yeah, let's not fight. At the drop of a hat, something just happened at the drop of a hat. That was usually when we start. Instead of waving a green flag, it's at the drop of a hat. Saved by the Bell. This is crazy to me. Apparently, they used to have trouble in medieval times. What is medieval? I need to look that up. They had trouble burying people alive. That ain't funny. I mean, it was common, and you know how they found out? When they, from time to time they would have to exhume the body or whatever to make room for more dead. And, they're just skeletons in there now, but they see scratch marks on the top of the inside of the top of the coffin. So after a few scratch marks, they started, every coffin, it had it was attached to a line, and on the ground, there was a bell, and in the coffin was a string. So if the person woke up, they could pull that string, and the bell would ring, and it would signal people up top, he ain't dead. And this happened. So they were literally saved by the bell. That's creepy. That's creepy. So to be less creepy, in the 16th century, they believed that sneezing, it wasn't your sick, it wasn't your, it wasn't allergies like I have, but it was your body's way of getting rid of bad spirits, dispelling bad spirits from the body. And the Pope instituted this. When someone sneezes, they're getting rid of bad spirits. So you say, bless you, bless you. That's where that came from. I tell people, look, I got 15 more. You're going to say bless you. You're going to quit saying bless you, and then that sneeze is not going to be blessed. In the 1800s, I know you've heard this, men could beat their wives or their kids with a stick. It was legal. It was legal, but the stick couldn't be any thicker than that man's thumb. It's legal. It's also called the rule of thumb. Yeah, it's just a rule of thumb. It's a given. That's how we do it. Also in the 1800s, when a man finished beating his wife and kids with a stick, their mattresses, the bed frames they didn't have slats like we do now or any of the Tempur-Pedic mofungo, but they had ropes, woven ropes that it would sit on. And sometimes these ropes would get loose and they had to tighten them up. Thus the saying, sleep tight. Ships back to the Navy, at some point, when they would fight, a lot of times to confuse people, ahead of time, ships would put up different flags from different countries to confuse them. Maybe it's not the enemy or whatever. But the rule was, not the rule of thumb, but the rule was, when it's time to fight, you have to put your flag up top. Fighting with someone else's flag, big no-no. That's where it's the thing, your true colors comes in. Your true colors, your real flag. How about that? I'm going to assist this. Okay, the word cocktail. You know where that comes from? The word cocktail. So in the 1800s, a horse that was not purebred, its tail would stick up higher, kind of like a chicken or a cock, would stick up higher than a purebred, which would lay correctly. And they called that, oh, he's got a cocktail. Well, it was also meant it wasn't purebred, so it was a mixed breed. You go to the bar, you want a mixed drink, it's a cocktail. That's where that comes from. Can you believe it? You can not believe it for all I care. But, so last one. In Greece, not the movie, ancient Greece, when someone would flex their bicep, I don't flex mine because it's more than you can bear. It looked like a little mouse. Just a little mouse. Look at that. The bicep. Well, the Greek word for little mouse is musculus. That's where we get the word muscle. There you go. That's about all I can give you today. There's so much knowledge. I feel spent. I've spewed so much knowledge to you, but I hope you enjoyed it. Keep sending them some of these. I know you've sent me and RR had them in there, but I'll say who sent them to me and give you some kudos. I appreciate you hanging out. Let me know what you think. David@otalks.com or Dave@otalks.com. Otalks Official on TikTok, Instagram, X, whatever those are out there. Many thanks to Kira for taking care of me and making me look better than I deserve. But thanks for hanging out. But most of all, thanks for O-Talking with Dave. Giddyup.